So here we're going to look at the dark reaction, or also known as the light-independent reactions, or the Calvin cycle. Basically, we're going to see how life can be built from air. So the air I'm talking about is carbon dioxide, and how we're going to convert carbon dioxide into glucose, into like an actual organic molecule, a macromolecule. So if we have carbon dioxide to start, you can see we're missing hydrogens and probably bonds that need to be built. So ultimately, in the dark reaction, we're going to reduce carbon dioxide to form our glucose molecule. And that's ultimately the big picture. We're going to take the hydrogens and electrons from the light reaction right here, and we're going to add them to carbon dioxide in the most basic, simple explanation, oxidizing the electron carrier and reducing carbon dioxide. So let's go ahead and see how the Calvin cycle works. So it's a cycle, meaning that these 5 carbons you see here, we're going to want to end with to start the cycle over and over and over again. So this molecule, 5-carbon molecule, is ribulose bisphosphate, or RuBP. There's 3 of those to start, so we're starting out with 15 carbons. And then the first phase of the Calvin cycle requires 3 carbon dioxides from the air. So that first step is going to be carbon fixation, where we're going to, or the plant is going to fix or take carbon from the air and incorporate it into an organic molecule to make it usable by the plants. So here's our RuBP. Then there's an enzyme called Rubisco. Rubisco will attach that carbon dioxide out of the air, incorporating it into a 6-carbon molecule. So Rubisco is one of the most abundant enzymes on Earth, actually. So we're going to do that 3 times. So we're taking 3 carbon dioxides out of the air, and Rubisco will fix it onto RuBP. Now this 6-carbon molecule that's formed is actually pretty unstable, and it separates pretty quickly. It breaks into 6 3-carbon molecules. Now, at this point, At this point, we're going to go through phase 2, or the reduction phase. Now, Calvin cycle, or the dark reaction, is an anabolic pathway, which means energy requiring. So here we have the ATP that was produced from the light reaction that's actually going to phosphorylate each of these 6 3-carbon molecules. So here's the energy one part of the energy investment that happens in this anabolic pathway. And our next step, so those phosphates are actually still attached. I just removed them for simplicity. Then the next part of the reduction phase is to take those electron carriers from the light reaction as well that are carrying the electrons and the hydrogens, and we're going to reduce these 6 3-carbon molecules. So we're going to go through a process of oxidation and reduction, and all of these will be reduced. Oops, I'm sorry, it's not a timer. We're going to use those reduced electron carriers. So now what's produced right here, we actually have, so here to refresh your memory from the light reaction, the ATP and NADPH were made from that. So here though, we actually have 6 molecules of G3P. So that 3-carbon molecule is actually called G3P, and that's the main building block for all other organic molecules. That G3P will be used to build lipids, larger carbohydrates like starch and cellulose and glucose. So you can see how there's 3 carbons right here. And so this is where the name C3 photosynthesis comes from. And one G3P will attach to another G3P to form your 6-carbon glucose. So while technically we have 6 G3Ps right here, only 1 leaves. Now those 3 carbons represent the first 3 carbon dioxides that were taken in during carbon fixation. So now we are left with 15 carbons remaining, which is, if you remember, what we started with. And so now that those remaining, 15 carbons will need to be regenerated back into RuBP. So the third phase of the Calvin cycle is to invest a few more ATP that will basically reorganize those 15 carbons back into RuBP, and the process can start all over again. and that is the Calvin cycle.